Whatever you say nothing when you talk about you know what. For if you know should hear you, you know what you'll get. They'll take you off to you know where, and you wouldn't know how long. So for you know whose sake, don't let anyone hear you singing this song. This first-person film, set in the 1950s, reminds us how Catholic grammar schools insisted on blind obedience. The system was a bully, thriving on parents and children being shamed into silence. The author's answer was resistance, mocking his tormentors as the twisted paper tigers they were. Starting as early as 5 years old, he fought against their unfairness and found standing up for yourself was its own reward. But those powers insisted on whatever you say nothing. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. I'm gonna trouble the water. I was in the army in 1966. I'm gonna trouble the water. I was in a situation that I could not fix. I was gonna trouble the water. Blanket party. When you entered the U.S. Army boot camp in 1966, they shaved your head so thoroughly, you'd have thought they were making money on the hair they shaved off your head. But the purpose of this initiation ritual was to make all of us look the same, to reinforce the illusion that you were all the same in the eyes of the Army. So all y'all had better get with the program and act like you were all the same. I was born not to conform. So I asked the sergeant, when he told me to shave off my mustache as well, when I could grow back my beloved mustache. He said with a straight face, I'm sure they'll let you grow that back after you graduate from boot camp. Fair enough. I'll have a bald upper lip for 8 weeks, I said to myself. As soon as we arrived in advanced individual training after graduating from boot camp, we had an orientation where I posed this question in front of my fellow 2,700 trainees. Sergeant Major, I was told in basic training when I got to AIT, I could grow back my mustache that I shaved off at boot camp. The sergeant replied, all y'all, listen up. I'm going to say this once, so you better not ask about it again. The face you have on your ID card will be the face you will present for the rest of your stay in this man's army. Period. Son of a bitch. They lied to me. I blurted out to no one. Within minutes, I remembered the moment. They took the picture of my face for that ID card. It was a Polaroid. That meant that tiny portrait on my laminated plastic card was the only copy. There was no negative in the Polaroid process. If I were to lose that card, there would be no card to compare my face to. Luckily, a week later, they gave us a 2-week Christmas leave, and I spent that 2 weeks growing a mustache and carelessly leaving my ID card on my dresser at home in New York. You've already heard the day-long story where I end up with a government-approved mustache. Some of my fellow soldiers were pissed off that I fought for and won the right to be the only one in 2,700 trainees with a mustache, approved by the commanding officer. A small group of creeps in my barracks decided I needed a blanket party for being a nonconformist. Let's define blanket party for the uninitiated. It starts with a group sympathetic to the Army's mission of blind obedience. It then adds corporal punishment for those who step out of line or don't conform. It takes two to tango, so when the offending party steps out of line, the enforcers of blind obedience, they just feel the need to beat the crap out of the person who refuses to get with the program. This violent reinforcing of conforming to norms is silently sanctioned by the powers that be, because they've been forced by lawsuits to write protections against corporal punishment into the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Moreover, this unchecked violence is more dangerous in direct proportion to what your company commander might allow or ignore. I had my new mustache about 4 weeks when I heard rumors that someone had a blanket party planned in my honor. At least I'm going to be the center of their attention. My best friends happened to bunk right below me and next to me. We made up the outcast corner of the barracks. Bill Davis, white guitar player from Beeville, Texas, and my two black unindicted co-conspirators, Walter Gray from Detroit, and last but not least, my main man, Ronnie Eastman from Roxbury, Mass. All four of us weird musketeers used to harmonize in our leisure hours. This is a training outfit for medics, and it was far more relaxed than most training units. But there was one goon named Politis from East St. Louis, and he and a crew of racist creeps did not like Davis and I socializing with the black troops, especially singing together. It wasn't natural, or some such madness. I was alone in the latrine one night when three of the creeps came in, and one of them said, "Hey, Bob, which is worse, negras or negra lovers?" There was only white boys here, including me. Outnumbered, I quickly brushed by them and slipped away from the confrontation, singing, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. I'm gonna trouble the water." They froze in their tracks long enough for me to get away. Their blanket party secret was leaked, and all for one and one for all was our battle call. What was remarkable was how lame their excuse for the blanket party was. The 15 minutes the platoon had to wait, while Sergeant Coulter failed to persuade me to shave my stash. Shaving it would have taken longer. It was the mustache. On the empty ground floor of our barracks building, I found 4 2-foot-long steel pipes. They hold the bunks together, and all 4 of us, the weird musketeers, in the misfit corner, tucked them under our pillows. Next to us were our steel pots, which is the Army-issue steel helmet. We were tipped off by James Eddy, who was stranger than all 4 of us musketeers put together. He was passing as normal because he had his own plan for leaving the Army and the country, and he didn't want that jinxed. He was so convincing at this normal role, the goons let him in on the news of their blanket party festivities. It was scheduled for a little after lights out. Now, I'm usually asleep a few minutes after the room goes dark. The goons have learned this from Fred Friend, a goon who bunked across from me. I was faking snoring, and Gray was on the top bunk next to mine with his one eye peeking over his folded pillow, just slightly open. Friend became convinced I was asleep and gave them the signal to proceed. There were 6 of them, sliding down the well-polished floor, tiptoeing to my bed, with 2 blankets, along the wide aisle between the bunks in the middle of the barracks, with only the light from the latrine about 60 feet away, casting long shadows and backlit figures, with Politis heading up the goon squad. They were whispering to each other, sliding along the well-waxed floor. You could hear them breathing. My pulse was thumping in my throat and my temple. My mouth was flannel dry. They were about 10 feet away when I rolled off the top bunk, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Goons, you fucking goons! You want some of me? Come on!" All 4 of us weird musketeers stood next to my bunk, steel pipes in hand, steel pots in the other. At the other end of the barracks, James Eddy flicked on all the lights that he banged on the sergeant's door. The sudden flood of light made this low-light scene turn stark and awkward when fully lit, that's still tense, as no one is moving until the sergeant comes flying out of his room. Nobody has moved forward toward the intended victim because the odds aren't so good anymore against someone who can defend himself. Their mouths moved in vague threats that are broken off by the approach of Sergeant Coulter. "What the hell's going on here? What are you supposed to be? A Mickey Mouse lynch mob?" "Well, Sergeant, shut up. Get back in your bunks." I got the sergeant's attention. "Sarge, do I have to press charges here to get some security around here?" "Sullivan, in my office." I plopped my equipment on the bunk and said to Ron Eastman, "Ronnie, keep an eye on that, will you? I'll be right back." "Morons, can't even pull off a blanket party," the sergeant muttered to himself, but loud enough for the goon party to hear. As I walked into the sergeant's office, I said, "I'm sorry, Sarge, but I got to defend myself. I don't mean to cause trouble, but I'll fuck these guys up if they come after me." "Shut up, Sullivan. Nobody's coming after you, not after what I just saw. But you can do yourself a favor and save everybody here a lot of grief by not pressing charges. I'll let these morons know, number 1, they blew it, and they can get a courts-martial. And 2, you are not pressing charges is a favor they owe you, and it can be rescinded any time you please. Now, you've caused enough chaos in 1 week for a platoon of privates. Go to bed." "Sarge?" "Nothing. Get to bed. Just, thank you. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. You're welcome." I walked down the middle of that aisle, and there wasn't a peep out of anyone as I sang quietly to myself, "We in the water, we in the water, children." I was fairly certain the sergeant was right. Nobody was coming near me to start a blanket party now. But the 4 musketeers were going to hold on to our equipment for a while longer. Even though the sergeant guaranteed our safety, it was an uneasy peace. The goons had really blown it, showing their intention to physically harm another soldier in the presence of Sergeant Coulter, a non-com sworn to uphold the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. There was also a room full of privates who were witnesses, who were not friends of the goons. The goons had shown their hand, and now a courts-martial for them was my ace in the hole. It never ceases to amaze me how people will enforce the normal behavior accepted by a dominant group by ostracizing those who don't conform, even resorting to violence to keep people in line who don't agree with them. Allies of these outsider groups come in for some special treatment, as they are considered traitors. Those enforcing these norms fall for the illusion fostered on them by those in power that they are better than the groups branded outsiders, even though by any rational criteria they have more in common than not with these targets. To stay in power, these leaders work to divide and conquer with mythologies and scare tactics, portraying the outsiders as animals, like chimps. In the 1800s, the infamous cartoonist Thomas Nast depicted the Irish as monkeys, wearing Irish outfits and Irish clay pipes in their gobs. These goons in the army barracks were falling for all of the stereotypes they had heard about Negroes and their allies, Negra lovers. You could call this unconstitutional in that they were abridging our First Amendment right to peacefully assemble. My mom would say, "Oh, Terence, don't make a federal case out of it." Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. I'm gonna trouble the water. They could not see this as my civil rights. I'm gonna trouble the water. Now I see it as a lifelong fight. I'm still gonna trouble the water. We. Gomez crap. I was walking back from headquarters, fresh from my victory over the Army rule book, when I remembered I forgot. Corporal Gomez wanted me at the orderly room at 1700 hours. Let's listen in on my inner monologue as the newly crowned Mustache Man. Now, what does he want me to do at the river? And what am I going to do for dinner? This prick has got to let me have dinner sometime. Oh shit, here he comes, swaggering down the sidewalk. Where are you going, Private? Time to sneak off? Corporal, I was just heading straight for the orderly room. I just now got through with the colonel. He's going to let me keep my mustache. Isn't that great news? All he wants me to do is trim it and report back to Sergeant Major Towns as soon as I do. Should I tell the colonel I had an appointment with you first, Corporal? What? Don't you fuck around with me, Private. Same time, 1700 hours at the orderly room tomorrow. I gave him a cartoonish, snappy salute a la Monty Python and said, "Yes, sir!" A bit too loudly. "Yes, Corporal Sullivan," said Gomez, correcting me. No. But I'm Private Sullivan, Corporal. I was trying to light it up, but the corporal was not biting. "No, you are a smart-ass pussy. That's your army, Corporal." What you supposed to mean? That means you can say whatever bullshit comes into your head, no matter how lame, when you're talking to a private in the army, and they can't do anything. But everybody that ranks over you gets to shit on your head. That ain't right. That ain't American. I was hoping that American chauvinism there at the end might have saved it. Maybe. You are a weirdo, Sullivan. What you doing in this man's army? You know, Corporal, that's a great question, because obviously I'm unsuitable for military life. So why don't you just discharge me, huh? Oh, I almost forgot. The colonel told me to get back to headquarters to see Sergeant Major Towns. Right, dismissed. That name brought Gomez back to reality. Sergeant Major Towns did not like to be kept waiting, and he wasn't going to help me out with an excuse to be late. All these layers of petty, every day, every hour fear these guys live by. Boy, it's tiring. As I walked away, I knew the colonel didn't want me going back right to see Towns. I could do that after classes tomorrow at 3 p.m. But I could never get to dinner tonight if I didn't blow off Gomez. I better trim the mustache, walk past headquarters, just in case Towns is there, and then take a leisurely walk to the mess hall with my newly approved mustache. I still can't believe it. Hurry up and wait all day long. They were bluffing. What a lot of hot air. They were good, though. Everyone playing their part to the hilt. Makes you wonder if the colonel was the only one who knew from the get-go. But that's it. It still makes you wonder. Who knows what? And if you're not confused, you're not paying attention. 24 hours later, I was the only trainee out of 2,700 with a mustache, and it's approved. It's also 24 hours later for Corporal Gomez, and I was hoping stalling with the Colonel Dixon alibi gave Gomez another 24 hours to cool off from the initial flare-up, because his manhood was dissed by the mustache removal. So I was walking through the company area. I was wondering just how pissed the corporal still was. He didn't look exactly ecstatic to see me as he walked up, so I thought I'd try to break the ice. First, I saluted the corporal. Corporal Gomez returned the salute icily and said, "Corporal, I'm sorry I insulted your mustache yesterday, but it was just tit for tat because you insulted mine. You are supposed to listen, not talk when a corporal talks to you. That's what you don't understand." "Yeah, right. You don't have to tell me I'm right." See, this is just what I was talking about yesterday. You can't talk to anybody like a fucking human being. You got to look at his fucking shirt to see what his rank is, if he's higher ranked than you. I told you fucking people, throw me out when you dragged me in here. I was yelling so loud that I couldn't hear the corporal if he was saying something. But he was pointing, and when I finished the raging sentence, I heard river. "You want to go to the fucking river? I'll go to your fucking river." "Where? Where?" The corporal pointed, and I started striding away. I was losing it, roaring. "Here? Over here?" I was about 8 inches taller than Gomez, and it was mostly legs. So as I started walking, striding, roaring, my stride was about twice what the corporal was, so he was doing kind of a catch-up gallop every few steps to get there at the same time. We crossed a paved road going over a creek, funneled over a culvert, and the corporal pointed, "In there." "What? In the creek with my leather combat boots? Really bright. Okay? Why should I give a shit?" I walked carefully into the stream, which was about a foot deep and 20 feet wide. "Okay, now what do you want?" "Take those rocks out of the river and put them on the bank to dry so you can paint them. Mañana." "This is your idea of punishment? What, carrying the rocks out of this river? Big fucking deal." All of a sudden, I was calming down. Probably the weight of the stones and the speed of the walkover kicked in, and I had to calm down or my forehead would have exploded. "What, are you kidding? This is fun." And I started singing very loudly, maniacally. Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to work we go. I took 2 big rocks, one after the other, and I threw them over my head as hard as I could, smashing the first with the second, as both cracked. A spray of rock shrapnel hit the Corporal Gomez's boots, also rendering the rocks useless as pathway stones, which was the alleged point of this exercise. Actually, exercise seemed to be the only point of this outing. My physical exercise in the stream and the corporal exercising what little power he had over privates. Back to the action. Hi-ho, hi-ho, we're digging a ditch, oh what a bitch. Hi-ho, 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 hi-ho. You couldn't think of a nastier way to punish me than this? This is bullshit, Corporal. This is a waste of time. Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to work we go. Shut up, Private. What are you going to do? Hit me? You know you can't do that. There's people not 50 yards away on those swings over there. You could lose your precious stripes of yours. Then you'd just be a private like me. And all on account of some weirdo from New York. Hi-ho, hi-ho, get out of that river. Oh, me? I'm just fine in here, Corporal. You want to come in here and get me? Oh, by the way, Sergeant Coulter says to remind you, no matter what detail you put me on, be sure to include time to send me to evening mess. Because he doesn't want to get in Dutch with the colonel. That's what he said. Get your ass out of there and go to chow and get out of my sight. Now the corporal was losing it because he didn't care what trouble I got in, because this was the essence of Army chicken shit. And I wasn't going to lay down dying, fearing the next petty detail he had in store for me. This is backfiring badly on the corporal. He thought he was going to show me who was boss, and I wasn't playing the game. I wasn't afraid of whatever the corporal had in store for me, because I was too pissed to be afraid of any more bullshit from these hot-ass specialists. Besides, I outweighed the corporal by about 25 pounds, and it would take Gomez weeks to get past my jab, if it ever came to that. And that, a physical confrontation, might have been the subtext to this entire melodrama, all twisted and deferred by rank and race and rage. I sloshed my way up the bank, my fatigue pants about 10 pounds heavier, my combat boots squishing water out of every eyelet. And I said, beautiful, just beautiful. What am I going to tell Sergeant Coulter tomorrow when my boots are too wet to wear and we're marching 12 miles to evac training? I ended up wearing my Army issue Oxfords, which were just as comfortable or uncomfortable as my boots. Corporal Gomez didn't answer, so I just walked away without so much as a fare thee well, my darling corporal. Goodbye, my pendejo. Your disposition's itchy and your mind is mighty slow. I was never asked to paint those rocks, and the corporal ceased to ask me for any more special detail work. One wonders if those poor rocks, whose home for so long had been that lovely mossy riverbed, are still waiting on that riverbank to be painted, or return to their ancestral home 53 years later. Hard times, come again no more. Whatever you say nothing when you talk about you know what. For if you know should hear you, you know what you'll get. They'll take you off to you know where, and you wouldn't know how long. So for you know whose sake, don't let anyone hear you singing this song.